You know that sick feeling you get when something's just off? When your gut is screaming at you but you can't put your finger on what's wrong. That's exactly how I felt working under Victor Langford at Northbridge Technologies. I'm Amelia, by the way. Senior market analyst at a cybersecurity firm in Denver. Been there 4 years, worked my way up from junior researcher to basically running competitive intelligence for our entire sales division. Not trying to brag, but I'm good at what I do. Really good. I can spot market trends before they happen and predict competitor moves like I'm reading their playbook. Which is exactly why what happened next made my blood run cold. It started with the Morrison Industries deal. We'd been courting them for 8 months, a massive $3.2 million cybersecurity overhaul that would have been our biggest win of the quarter. I'd done the research, built the competitive analysis, even flew out to Phoenix twice to meet their IT director. The pitch was flawless. I'd identified exactly why their current system was vulnerable, mapped out our solution against their specific pain points, and even discovered that their main concern was regulatory compliance in the healthcare sector, something our competitors consistently screwed up. We were a shoo-in. Everyone knew it. Then Morrison went with TitanCore systems instead. Now, losing deals happens. It sucks, but it's part of the business. What made me suspicious was how TitanCore won. According to my contact at Morrison, TitanCore's presentation addressed every single concern I'd identified. They knew about the regulatory compliance issues. They even used similar language to describe the vulnerabilities I'd found. Coincidence? Maybe. But my instincts were pinging. Victor, my director, shrugged it off during our team debrief. These things happen, Amelia. TitanCore probably did their homework too. But here's the thing about Victor, he never just shrugged anything off. The guy was obsessed with wins and losses, dissected every deal like he was performing surgery. For him to be this casual about losing a massive contract? That was red flag number 1. Over the next 2 months, it happened 3 more times. Different prospects, different industries, same result. We'd get 90% of the way to closing, then suddenly the client would go with TitanCore or one of the other big players. Each time, I'd hear through industry contacts that our competitors had presented solutions eerily similar to our internal strategies. Not identical, that would have been too obvious, but close enough to make me paranoid. I started keeping informal notes. Not anything dramatic, just a simple document tracking our lost deals and what I could find out about the winning presentations. Call it professional curiosity. The Zentech Group contract was the breaking point. We'd been working that account for 6 months. I'd personally built a custom security audit that identified $400,000 in potential savings through our platform. The presentation deck I created had this specific slide about their legacy system vulnerabilities, complete with a diagram I'd drawn myself showing how our solution would integrate. 3 weeks later, Zentech signed with TitanCore. My contact there mentioned that TitanCore's presentation included a nearly identical vulnerability diagram. Now I was officially freaked out. Look, I'm not naturally paranoid. I don't read conspiracy theories or assume the worst about people. But I also didn't spend 4 years in competitive intelligence without learning how to spot patterns. Someone was leaking our strategies. The question was who? The leak had to be someone with access to my research and presentation materials. That narrowed it down to maybe 8 people in our division. But most of them were my peers, people I'd worked with for years, people who had no reason to sabotage their own commissions. Then there was Victor. Victor had access to everything. As director of strategic accounts, he reviewed all major proposals before they went to clients. He also had the industry connections to know people at TitanCore. And here's what really bothered me, he never seemed surprised when we lost these deals. Most managers would be furious about losing $3+ million in contracts. They demand answers, order investigations, maybe even bring in external consultants to figure out what was going wrong. Victor just accepted it. Market's getting more competitive, he'd say. We need to adjust our approach. But we weren't adjusting anything. We were just losing. I needed proof. Real, concrete evidence that would hold up under scrutiny. Because if I was wrong about Victor, accusing him would end my career. And if I was right? Well, that might end my career too, depending on how deep this went. I've always been a chess player. Not professionally or anything, but my dad taught me young, and I still play online when I can't sleep. The thing about chess is that sometimes the best way to expose your opponent's strategy is to give them exactly what they want to take. In chess, that's called a sacrifice. In corporate espionage, I guess you'd call it a honey trap. I spent 3 weeks creating the perfect fake opportunity. A fictional company called Apex Robotics, supposedly a manufacturing firm looking to upgrade their entire cybersecurity infrastructure. On paper, they looked like a $5 million deal, exactly the kind of whale that would make anyone's mouth water. I made it convincing. Created a fake website, LinkedIn profiles for their supposed executives, even had my college roommate, who works in manufacturing, take a few calls pretending to be their CTO. The research file I built was 47 pages of pure fiction, but it looked absolutely legitimate. Here's the key part: I intentionally included subtle flaws in my analysis. Not obvious mistakes that would scream fake, but small inconsistencies that any competent analyst would catch. I inflated their employee count by 30%, miscalculated their revenue projections, and most importantly, recommended a security solution that was overpowered for their actual needs. Then I did something I'd never done before. I accidentally saved the Apex Robotics file in a shared drive folder that Victor had access to. I didn't tell him about it, didn't assign him to the project, didn't even mention Apex in our team meetings. I just left it there like a loaded mousetrap and waited. For weeks later, my college roommate Sarah called me, laughing so hard she could barely speak. "Amelia, you're not going to believe this. Some company called TitanCore just pitched my actual boss on a cybersecurity upgrade. They kept talking about Apex Robotics and how they'd helped similar manufacturing companies. My boss was so confused. We're not Apex Robotics, we're Precision Components Incorporated." The sales guy turned bright red and hung up. My heart started racing. Did they mention specific details about the proposal? Oh yeah, tons of stuff. Something about 2,000 employees and $50 million in revenue. Plus they recommended this massive security overhaul that would have cost us more than we spend on raw materials. My boss said it was like they were pitching to a completely different company. The flaws I'd built into the fake proposal. TitanCore had taken my bait and run with it, embarrassing themselves in front of a real prospect. I had my smoking gun. But I also had a problem. The honey trap proved someone was leaking information, but it didn't definitively prove it was Victor. Yes, he was the only person with access to that specific file, but a good lawyer could probably poke holes in that logic. I needed something more concrete. This is where my cybersecurity background finally came in handy. See, most people think about document security in terms of passwords and access controls. But every file has metadata, digital fingerprints that track when it was created, modified, and accessed. I called in a favor with Jake, one of our IT security specialists. Told him I was worried about potential data breaches and wanted to run a security audit on some of our shared files. Not technically a lie, I was definitely worried about a data breach. Jake helped me implement invisible digital watermarks on all my research documents. Nothing malicious, just tiny metadata tags that would track which user account accessed each file and when. Industry standard stuff that any cybersecurity firm should be using anyway. Then I waited for the next big opportunity. The Preston Holdings contract landed on my desk in November. A legitimate $4.2 million deal with a financial services company in Chicago. I built my analysis, included my recommendations, and embedded my digital watermarks in every file. I also did something new. I created 2 versions of the key documents. The official version went into our standard project folder. But I created a slightly different version, with modified pricing structures and different competitive positioning, and saved it in the same shared drive where I'd left the Apex Robotics file. Only Victor had access to that specific folder. If TitanCore somehow got their hands on the modified version, I'd have my proof. 3 weeks later, Preston Holdings went with TitanCore. Again. But this time, I was ready. I reached out to my contact at Preston and casually asked about TitanCore's presentation. What I heard made my hands shake. TitanCore had pitched the exact pricing structure from my modified document. Not the official version that went to Preston, but the fake numbers I'd hidden in Victor's shared folder. The digital watermarks confirmed it. Victor's user account had accessed the modified files 2 days before TitanCore's presentation. IT logs showed he downloaded them to a USB drive. I finally had my smoking gun. But instead of going to HR or Victor's boss, I decided to go nuclear. You see, Northbridge's quarterly board meeting was scheduled for December 15th. The agenda included a review of our competitive positioning and recent contract losses, exactly the kind of discussion where my evidence would be most devastating. I had 3 weeks to prepare the presentation that would end Victor's career. I've given a lot of presentations in my career, but none as important as this one. I knew I'd only get one shot, so everything had to be perfect. The presentation was titled Market Discrepancies and Strategic Risk Analysis. Boring enough that nobody would object to me presenting, specific enough that I could include all my evidence. I structured it like a detective story. Started with our declining win rate against TitanCore, down 40% over 6 months. Then I showed the pattern of lost deals, highlighting how TitanCore consistently seemed to anticipate our strategies. The middle section introduced the Apex Robotics honey trap. I explained how I'd created a fake opportunity to test for information leakage, complete with screenshots of TitanCore's embarrassing pitch to the wrong company. But the finale was the Preston Holdings case. Digital forensics showing exactly which user account accessed the modified files. Timestamps proving the access occurred before TitanCore's presentation. And most damning of all, proof that only Victor's account had the access rights to those specific documents. I rehearsed that presentation until I could give it in my sleep. Every slide, every transition, every potential question the board might ask. I even practiced different ways Victor might try to interrupt or deflect. My colleague Naomi was the only person I told. I needed at least one witness who could confirm my timeline and vouch for my methodology. She was horrified but supportive. "Are you sure you want to do this in front of the board?" she asked. "That's career suicide if you're wrong." "I'm not wrong," I told her. "And if I am, then I don't deserve this job anyway." December 15th. The Northbridge conference room was packed with our 7 board members, plus senior leadership from each division. I'd been on the agenda for months as part of our quarterly competitive analysis, so nobody questioned my presence. Victor was there too, of course. Sitting at the far end of the table in his expensive suit, radiating that confident charm that had fooled everyone for so long. He even smiled at me when I walked in. Chairman Whitmore called the meeting to order at 2 p.m. sharp. We went through the usual agenda items: financial reports, product updates, personnel changes. I sat quietly, my laptop closed, waiting for my moment. At 3:15, we reached competitive analysis. "Amelia has some concerns about our market positioning," Whitmore announced. "She's prepared a presentation on recent trends." Victor looked mildly interested but not worried. Why would he be? As far as he knew, I was just going to talk about normal competitive intelligence stuff. I stood up, connected my laptop to the projector, and smiled at the room. "Thank you, Chairman Whitmore. What I'm about to show you represents 6 months of investigation into a serious security breach that's cost us approximately $12 million in lost contracts." The room went dead silent. Victor's smile faded. I started with the numbers. Our declining win rate, the pattern of lost deals, the suspicious timing of TitanCore's competitive responses. Board member Sophia Klein, who never missed a detail, immediately started asking pointed questions. "You're suggesting industrial espionage," she said. "I'm documenting it," I replied, clicking to my next slide. I explained the Apex Robotics honey trap in detail. How I'd created a fake opportunity, embedded it with deliberate flaws, and watched TitanCore embarrass themselves trying to pitch it to a real company. The room was completely focused now. You could hear the air conditioning. Victor finally spoke up. "This seems like a lot of speculation, Amelia. Maybe TitanCore just did sloppy research." "That's what I thought initially," I said, advancing to the digital forensics section. But then I decided to test the theory more rigorously. I showed them the Preston Holdings case. The dual document versions, the access logs, the timing correlation with TitanCore's presentation. Victor's face was getting pale, but he was trying to maintain composure. "User logs can be spoofed," he said. "Someone could have used my credentials." Sophia Klein leaned forward. "Who else had access to those specific files?" "According to our IT security protocols, only the Director of Strategic Accounts has access to that shared drive folder," I replied. "That's Victor's account." Whitmore turned to Victor. "Do you have an explanation for why your account accessed documents that were subsequently used by our competitor?" Victor was sweating now. "I review a lot of files. I can't remember every document I've looked at." "But you remember this one," I said, clicking to my final slide. Because you downloaded it to a USB drive on November 8 at 3:47 p.m. Our security logs show the exact timestamp. The room erupted. Board members started talking over each other, demanding explanations, calling for immediate investigation. Victor tried to stand up, tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out. Finally, Whitmore slammed his hand on the table. "Victor, you're suspended immediately pending a full investigation. Security will escort you out of the building." What happened next was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The IT investigation took 3 days to confirm what I already knew. Victor had been systematically accessing confidential files and transferring them to external drives. They found evidence of communication with TitanCore executives dating back 8 months. Turns out, TitanCore had been paying Victor $15,000 per month for our competitive intelligence. Over the course of 10 months, he'd made $150,000 selling out his own company. The legal department filed criminal charges for corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets. Victor was arrested at his home on December 20th, 5 days after my presentation. But here's the part that really got me. Victor tried to plea bargain by claiming he was just feeding TitanCore false information to mislead them. His lawyers actually argued that he was conducting a counterintelligence operation. The prosecution destroyed that defense in about 30 seconds. If he was feeding them false information, why had we lost every single deal where the leaked intelligence was used? Victor got 18 months in federal prison and a $500,000 fine. TitanCore paid $12 million to settle the corporate espionage lawsuit, which more than covered our lost contracts. 3 months later, I was promoted to Victor's old position. Director of Strategic Accounts, with a 40% salary increase and a team of 6 analysts reporting to me. Some people asked if I felt bad about destroying Victor's career. The honest answer is no, not even a little bit. He made his choice when he decided to sell out his colleagues for a monthly paycheck from our competitor. But the real satisfaction wasn't the promotion or the money. It was sitting in that boardroom, watching Victor's face when he realized I'd outsmarted him. For months, he'd thought he was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. Turns out, he was right about the chess part. He just didn't realize I was playing too. The whole experience taught me something important about corporate loyalty and professional integrity. It's easy to assume that everyone around you shares your basic ethical standards. But some people will sell out their teams, their companies, even their friends if the price is right. The key is building systems that make dishonesty harder than honesty. Digital watermarks, access controls, audit trails, all the boring security stuff that most people ignore until something goes wrong. But more than that, it's about paying attention to patterns. Victor's casual attitude toward our losses, his lack of curiosity about competitor strategies, his convenient access to leaked information, all red flags that I almost ignored because I wanted to trust him. These days, I run a much tighter ship. My team knows that I review everything, that I track everything, and that I take information security seriously. Not because I don't trust them, but because trust without verification is just naivety. And honestly, the respect I earned from that board presentation has opened doors I never expected. Word got around the industry about how I exposed the TitanCore espionage ring. I get recruiting calls from competitors offering ridiculous salaries, invitations to speak at cybersecurity conferences, even a consulting offer from a forensic accounting firm. But I'm staying at Northbridge. This is my company now, and I've got work to do. If you're reading this and thinking you might be in a similar situation, if you've got that nagging feeling that someone on your team isn't playing fair, trust your instincts. Document everything, build your case methodically, and don't act until you have proof that will hold up under scrutiny. But when you do have that proof, don't settle for a quiet resignation or a behind-the-scenes conversation with HR. Sometimes the only way to fix a systemic problem is to expose it in front of people who have the power to actually solve it. Victor thought he was untouchable because he was charming and well-connected and had been with the company for 8 years. He thought I was just another analyst who wouldn't dare challenge someone at his level. He was wrong about that too. When you sell integrity, you bankrupt more than just yourself. You bankrupt everyone who trusted you, everyone who worked alongside you, everyone who believed you were fighting for the same team. Victor learned that lesson the hard way. I just hope his 18 months in federal prison gave him plenty of time to think about it.